Hi, this video is about word problems on direct variation. Direct variation is when two variables are related to each other a certain way. That certain way is that when one increases, so does the other, or if one decreases, so does the other. So they vary directly means they're moving in the same direction. In addition, when two variables vary directly, we can say something maybe like y varies directly with x. Another way we can think of this is that we can write an equation y equals k times x to relate the two variables together. And this is for some constant k. So our plan on these problems is to write this equation, this y equals kx, figure out what k should be, and then solve for the second part. So let's look at this problem we've been given. Ivan's earnings vary directly with the number of hours he works. Suppose that he worked for 10 hours yesterday and earned $140. If he earned $126 today, how many hours did he work today? So we are told that his earnings vary directly with the number of hours he works, which means that we can write an equation. Let's let E stand for his earnings, and number of hours we'll use a little h. So that means that his earnings vary directly, which means they can be some constant k times the number of hours he works. Okay, so our step one was to write that equation. Our step two is going to be solve for k. All right, so we're going to solve for k. We're going to figure out what k should be based on the original. So if we look at what happened originally, he worked 10 hours yesterday and earned $140. So yesterday, he earned $140 for 10 hours of work. So that means I can say that 140 equals k times 10. And I want to solve for k, so I'll divide by 10. And I have that k equals, 140 divided by 10. I could put that in my calculator, or I can do that division in my head, and I end up with 14. Now, that k equals 14 will be a constant that appears in our equation. So step 3, we can write that equation. His earnings are always 14 times the number of hours that he works. All right. What that is kind of saying is that 14, that is his hourly rate. He's earning $14 per hour. Okay. All right, so let's look at the next part of our problem. It asks, if he earns $126 today, how many hours did he work today? So he earns, if E is 126, how many hours did he work? So I'll plug in to figure this out. So that tells me 126 equals 14 times, and I'll leave this as an h because that's what I'm solving for. I can divide by 14, and I end up with h equals, and I'll do 126 divided by 14, and that equals 9. So my answer is 9 hours. I'm sure to include my unit because this is a word problem and I want to make sure that I put it in context. All right, let's do another example. This one is science related. So we have for a moving object, the force acting on the object varies directly with the object's acceleration. So let's give these some variables. We'll call the force a capital F and the acceleration a capital A. And because they vary directly, I know that F has got to equal k times A. And remember, k is some constant that we will solve for. Okay. When a force of 12 newtons acts on the certain object, the acceleration is 3 meters per second squared. So what that is telling you, that 12 newtons of force, so 12 newtons of force, corresponds with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared. So this is sort of the information that's going to let me find that k in my equation. So this was my step 1. I wrote my equation. So for step 2, let's find k. And I was given an F, a force of 12 newtons, and an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared. So F12 equals k, which I'm trying to find, times a, which is 3. All right, now I'll solve for k, divide by 3, and I have that k equals, those will cancel, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now for step 3, we can write our equation. F equals, and since k is 4, we know that F is 4 times A. Now we look at our last part of the question. If the force is changed to 32 newtons, what will be the acceleration of the object? So if force is 32, what is acceleration? So I will plug in the 32 for F. So I have 32 equals 4 times A, and I can divide by 4, and I end up with A equals 8. Okay, and now I need to put that in the context of the problem. So A equals 8, that's acceleration. So acceleration equals 8, and I go back and look at my units. My units of acceleration were meters per second squared. So this is 8 meters per second squared.